This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
So, ladies and gents, the international break, yet another one, is over and done with. We've seen England play poorly against the Greek side and play equally as poorly, but manage to get a win in the second game. And now the proper football starts again. So I am joined this evening by Chris from the Stacey West podcast, which is for our Lincoln City podcasters out there. So thank you very much indeed for joining us and giving us a little bit of an overview on the away end.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Firstly, I think the first thing to touch on is the name, because a lot of people ask who's Stacey West. The podcast is named after the Stacey West stand at Sinsel Bank, which is named after the two Lincoln City supporters who, Jim West and Bill Stacey and Jim West, who lost their lives in the Valley Parade fire. So if anyone was wondering who on earth is Stacey West, now you know. No one is called Stacey West that we're aware of.
That was going to be one of my questions. So
oh, was it? Sorry, there you go.
Off early. No, you're preempting it.
So a bit of an overview. Well, this is, I think, as I'm sure Blues fans can imagine, Little Lincoln City. This is quite a big game for us in terms of the stature. But we've had a few of these recently. This is our sixth season at League One level now. So we've had plenty of games against the likes of Ipswich when they were at this level, Sunderland when they were at this level, Derby, of course, last season, Portsmouth. So there always seems to be one or two really big sides that fall on kind of harder times and find themselves in League One with almost a desperation, I think, to kind of just get out at the quickest opportunity. Now, some of those have found it more difficult. So it's always a big game for us in these sort of ways. But I have to admit, we're a club that kind of thrives upon that a little bit.
Yep.
And we still kind of like to tag on to that underdog mentality, despite actually being an established League One side now. But we'll definitely run with the underdog tag this weekend, happily.
Well, I mean, you've started great in the season. I mean, to be where you are in the league, you know, winning 5, I think you drew 3. You've only lost the one game, so you know it's a very similar to ourselves in terms of that. Obviously, we go into it with us coming off the back of a defeat in the league last time around and not turning up at all. But then having a good game in the Bristol Street Motors. Can't believe I still talk about this now. You know, the last time we were in that league, we actually won that cup. So I'm hoping we can do the same again this time. But no, it's going to be an interesting one. We're going to hopefully see Birmingham bounce back. But I know we're going to come up against a good, tough side in yourselves. And yet again, I'll say this league is no walk in the park. People seem to think it's going to be. No, it's not. Every team wants to step up. Every team wants to beat us. But then equally, we've got to step up and go that next level to make sure we don't have that happen. So it's going to be a tough one. But, I mean, we haven't really played as clubs that many times. So, I mean, actually, over the years, there's only 37 games in all the years that we've been going. It's not pleasant reading from a Lincoln perspective, I'm afraid to say, because it's 25 wins for Birmingham. It's 8 draws, and we have actually, over the years, only lost 4. But it was when I looked over the past 5 games, I could not get over how far back we had to go. You know, so it was the last game was actually the 3-1 win in the League Cup for Birmingham. But prior to that, we're then talking going back many, many, many years. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think some of our fans probably, well, they wouldn't have been born the last time that we even played at your place. So it's going to be a great one. We've got to sell out again in terms of the away end, and that continues. I think now we've also got the sellout against Mansfield, so it's just that trend is there, and looking forward to it. So tell us a bit about Lincoln. You mentioned obviously you established yourself now in the division, but tell us a bit about how you play, how the manager structures the team, and ultimately what we're looking for and what should we look out for coming into Saturday's game.
Yeah, well, we're seeing the team with the most average possession in the league, and you guys against the team with the least amount of average possession in the league. So we're quite happy to allow the opposition to have the ball, particularly in your third of the pitch. I think you can sometimes make incorrect kind of conclusions from just looking at possession stats on their own. I think we're not bad for things like touches in the box, shots, box entries, possession in the final third, but we just allow teams to have the ball in their third, and we're really. I think our biggest strength is probably our out of possession structure. Really good at a kind of not necessarily a high press, but a mid block, but with an aggressive press, and that's probably our biggest strength at the moment is those kind of transitions. So we're
Hmm.
really good on the break, create a lot of chances off the back of winning the ball up kind of in the middle third of the pitch. And our biggest strength is defending our box, to be honest. So yeah, I think a lot of the statistics would show that we're probably quite a defensive team. I think we're kind of quite front-footed defensively, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But when we have to defend our goal, we brilliant at it, to be honest. There's not a Lincoln City fan out there that can criticize the team's kind of endeavor and commitment and fight for the shirt. So that's always for a lot of fans. I think that's a given to expect it, but it's not always actually what you see. So that's kind of the benchmark of it.
And what
We
formation do you tend to play?
so this
So,
is quite interesting. So we always tend to 3-5-2 would be the on paper formation, but we've been out of possession a back four or a back three at various times against various opposition, depending on the threat. So we're quite flexible out of possession. In possession, you'll see our wing backs both pushing high. We'll definitely play two up top if the theme of the season continues. We played two up top
yeah.
in every single match so far. And we've tended to switch both strikers at some point in the game. We've kind of got four fit first team centre forwards that are all of a similar quality that offer something a bit different. So that depth is always quite nice. So yeah, we tend to play two up top, and then that structure behind it will shift a little bit depending on the opposition slightly. But it's for me it's primed to be a really tight but interesting game because
Hmm.
your biggest strengths from what the statistics have shown and the clips I've seen have been the dominating games with the ball, obviously, high for having the ball, particularly in the middle third and out wide, maybe not always breaking down that final third at times.
Yeah.
And our biggest strength is our final third. So in terms of keeping teams out. So it'll almost be like the immovable force against the unstoppable objects or whatever it's called. But I think it'd be silly of me to not appreciate the quality in your side. But so my colleague Gary was on another one of the Birmingham, maybe one of your rivals, I'm not sure, podcast yesterday, and I have to agree with what he said in asking like what are the threats. And to be honest, there's not really a standout player. We haven't really got a star player that he's going to be really dangerous. That the strength of the club and the team is the collective.
Yeah.
This is the most depth I've genuinely ever seen in a Lincoln City squad in my lifetime. There are probably 22 players in the squad who, if they're chosen to start, you're not kind of thinking it's a weaker than someone else. There's kind of lots of like for like players there, which is really helpful at this level. But the collective is probably our biggest strength, to be honest. There definitely is the kind of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts mentality around the club. I have to admit the starts maybe surprised us a little bit in regard to being fourth in the league at the moment, as much as the league table kind of doesn't really count for anything at the moment. I think we would be happy to be kind of a top half League One side on the whole and try and punch upwards. So we're probably overachieving in that regard.
But momentum, it starts, and I guess the thing is, it's around how you then continue with that because, we've seen teams in every league in the past that have surprised others because they've started the season on a flyer and actually it's just maintained because you've got a settled side. And it seems as though that's what we can kind of expect going into or what is both of our 10th games of the season. So it's, you say the league early doors, you can generally say and see how things are going to pan out. And, hopefully you can continue that run. And like you say, it's top half, but why not? Why not go for a playoff? Why not push for it if you can do it? So you mentioned the calibration really of the team and how
Mhm.
it's set up, how it can fluctuate. But would you say you had a weakness? And if so, where would it be?
I think not finishing off chances at times this season, and we've been involved in a lot of tight games where we've missed a couple of chances. We've actually overachieved our XG, which kind of would suggest that that's not the case. But I think that's what's interesting when you look at the stats is that the balls that get flashed across the box that no one gets on the end of don't count as a shot,
Yeah.
or do they? So that's happened
No.
quite a few times. So that's something that the managers, would really like to improve upon at times. Is actually not taking the chances when we get them. We're not expecting to get many against you guys, so hopefully we're able to take some of those. And I think something that I wouldn't say struggled with, but maybe is not a strength of ours at the moment is maintaining possession in the final third. It's something that the gaffer definitely wants to improve upon. So we're really good in transition. We're really good at creating those chances from winning the ball back. But if we can't get through and get a shot away at that first attempt to then keep the pressure on, it's something that we maybe struggle with a little bit. So I actually think kind of like the second transition. So if we counter and then you counter again, that could potentially be a weakness. From a defensive perspective, it's really difficult to say we've got a weakness in any part of the pitch, to be honest, because that is our biggest strength is being able to defend our goal. And I think that keeps us in games. So even the games where we're not necessarily on our best or we're not creating a huge amount, we're in them.
Yeah.
And that means that you can potentially nick something. I really do expect this one to be maybe us retreating territory a little bit more than we have done in other games and maybe trying to almost have a traditional away performance, but at home. But we'll see.
I mean, it's going to. I think from what you're describing, it's going to make for a really interesting game because, as you say, the stats don't lie. So in terms of possession, we continually, at the moment, seem to be putting out games where we're talking late 60s, early 70s in terms of percent of possession. We have had similar sorts of times where, I mean, I take the last game at home and Stansfield had that many chances. On the day he could have walked away with four without any problems whatsoever. But it was one of those days where he'd have a strike and it wouldn't go his way. Yes, he set up the winner for Alfie to put away, and that was nice. But he was showing his workhorse side of things, and that was the difference. But again, similar to yourselves, there are so many times when we flash balls across the box and we haven't had that poacher around. Alfie May would have done that start of the season, but he's now having to find a new way of playing in effect with Stansfield. So it's a bit of a lottery in regards to how they play and how they start. What will be interesting, though, is you mentioned there about the counter-attack and the high press from yourselves. We do follow the high press. We do like to counter-attack. So actually, it could leave both sides open. And, for me, we are in a position at the moment where, as a team, we haven't had a settled side. There seems to have been changes week in, week out, whether that be through suspensions or injuries. And actually, we go into the game possibly without Christian Bielik, who, as captain and has been playing at centre half, has been phenomenal because he's able to keep the ball out, but then because of his old midfield side of the game, he can pick a pass. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see what that starting lineup for Chris Davies will actually be on Saturday, because at the moment, I couldn't call it, apart from saying that I think you'll see Alfie May and Stansfield playing. It won't be a 4-4-2. They will switch. Do like the wing play. So there will be that side of things that come into it. But again, it's who do we start? Keshi Anderson has been on absolute fire at the moment. But again, he's the type of player that blows hot and cold. So it's just going to be an extremely interesting and I think, enjoyable game for both sets of fans, because I do believe it'll be really, really open. I'm desperately hoping we don't see the Birmingham performance that we saw at Charlton. Let's just say that. And I think,
obviously, I am hoping that
I was going to say you guys want it. But I mean, obviously, there's the other side of things. So we've had players have passed that have crossed the divide, shall we say, between the two clubs. And I'm not going to lie, when I normally look at this, you can find players and think, yeah, I can't remember them. Oh, I've done that one. Yeah, that one was okay. Oh, remember seeing them play. Between ourselves, and because there's been such a divide, it was actually quite a tough one, this, when I was looking at the players that have come across both areas. There might be a bit of a challenge for you, but can you name 5 players that have either been on loan or have signed permanently and switched between the clubs? So that could be Lincoln to Birmingham, Birmingham to Lincoln.
This is going to be incredibly tough, because I can't think of many. That might be my lack of knowledge. Who knows? I just don't think we've had a huge amount to do with each other over the years, have we? We've been in kind of different
We
hemispheres
haven't.
in a way in terms of footballing. But we've got one player that was a Birmingham player very recently, in Zach Geacock. He's our kind of backup goalkeeper at the moment, so you won't be seeing him playing. I wouldn't have thought. Our number one is George Wickens, but yeah, Zach's played a couple of cup games so far. He's done all right.
Zach was
Uh,
all right at Birmingham, to be honest. He
mhm.
just, I think he had to move, in all honesty, to keep his career going. It was the right time for him to move on. He wasn't going to get an opportunity. And when I look at this season, we've brought in 2 new goalkeepers, and yes, they're fluctuating between them in terms of who's playing, but he just wouldn't have been anywhere near
Mhm.
a first team squad. So he's done the right thing with his move.
Yes, we know what. It's just I'm a goalkeeper myself, so keepers union is definitely a theme here. But we signed 3 permanent goalkeepers this summer. I don't think I've ever known us do that in my whole life, to sign 3 in one window. But yes, here's one. And Nick Townsend, I think he was another goalkeeper that played for both clubs. And I seem to think in the same season, because Charlie Adam,
Yes.
um, and he's a bit of a player kind of in Lincoln folklore, really, because he scored an absolute worldie of a goal from about genuinely around 40 yards out against our bitter rivals Grimsby, away at Grimsby, many years ago. And so he is well regarded as a Lincoln City loanee. I'm struggling to think of any other, to be honest with you. Really struggling.
And this, I've got to say, this is where it started, um, to kind of build up, because those were players that I think, with Jay Cocker has moved because of the fact that he needed to get the games, whereas Nick Townsend for me he was going to get his opportunity at some point, and he was on the fringe of Birmingham, couldn't quite make that bench, so therefore, again, going out on loan as a youngster did him the world of good. I'll put you out your misery with some of these others.
Please do, yeah.
Some of them before both of our times as well. But you've got a player that's attacking midfielder, was great when he played for Birmingham, and he very few opportunities really, and that was Kobe Arthur. He came to yourself on loan, um, and in fact, that was in the same season that Nick Townsend first came to you on loan.
Okay.
Well,
That's
um,
I think I've mentioned earlier that that particular season, I think we must have had about 60 players. Um, Paul Simpson's black book it was now. We had a new player on loan every week, it seems. So he can't have played very often, Kobe Arthur, I don't think. But there we go. That's an
13
interesting one.
14 season, you actually had 3 players coming from Birmingham, that being
Huh.
Townsend, Kobe Arthur, and you've mentioned him already, but Charlie Adam. Um, we've also got another player that I've got to be honest, I think was a youngster for Birmingham, because I can't remember him ever breaking into the first team. And that was a centre back called Graham Hutchinson. He moved on the 12-13 season. And then we really start going back. So Matthew Burley, right midfield, was in the
Oh.
06-07 season.
Another
Mark,
loanee, I think, was he?
it was indeed another loan. Um,
Mhm.
Mark McCarrick um, played as a left back, and he moved in. Now this is many moons ago, and scarily, 40 years ago, 1984-85 season. This is how
Jesus.
far it's such a jump. Colin Brazier in 82-83, but then we have again another massive jump. We're really going back in the years now, but we had Ron Allen, Keith Neal, Bert, and I think it's called Lineker, and Dick Neal Jr. Dick Neal Jr. 56, 57 season. So definitely before our time, and probably when
Absolutely.
our parents were only youngsters. So it just shows that actually there's a big difference, and how long it has been since we've really had the opportunity to be together on that front. So looking forward to Saturday. I mean, firstly, another sellout for Birmingham in terms of away fans. You know, we've always got this great following anyhow. And the one thing I can say is sometimes the smaller the amount of tickets, the louder the fans are. It's really quite strange. So you can expect a raucous atmosphere coming from the fans on the day. But what do you guys expect? You know, what do you think it's going to be like? And ultimately, what does your head say and what does your heart say in terms of results?
Always different things. I think off the pitch initially, it's of course a big game. But in terms of like attendance, not a lot's going to be different for us to normal. We almost sell out every week. I think our stadium averages around 93% kind of capacity most weeks. So we're really well backed by our home supporters, and I think a lot of things that attract the players here as part of the. So whenever we're trying to sign a new player, our director of football, George, and plus his team do a lot of work, and we've had the pleasure of kind of seeing some of the behind the scenes footage of what do you show the players, what do you know, and a lot of the big factor that seems to attract players to choose clubs or Lincoln over clubs of a similar size. You know, we're not fishing in the same waters as you guys, obviously for players. Is the atmosphere of the stadium? It's something that we're really kind of quite proud of. So as you guys are sat in the away end, the kind of top right corner to your right is known as the 617 squadron for obvious reasons, I think, if you know Lincoln history. They're the guys that will create atmosphere, and we're good at creating a big game atmosphere, and it's always great with a big away following. It always guarantees a good atmosphere. I think the whole club thrives off that a little bit. So there'll always be a bit of jest, I think, between home and away fans. But we're not only here because it's Birmingham. We're at home all the time. We're fill our home end all the time. So, but the atmosphere will be great. I think there's no denying that. We love it when a big clubs come away. It really adds to the day. On the pitch, I can see it being a tight affair, to be honest. I think it would be really silly of me to just kind of cast aside the undoubted quality of your side. You've got so many really, really talented footballers that on paper, of course, like for like, are going to be of a higher quality than ours. But we do have some really strong individuals, particularly defensively, as mentioned. We're quite good at set pieces, so kind of a threat attacking, and we tend to defend our own box pretty well. So, I'm tempted to say 0-0, to be honest, and I'd be delighted with a 0-0. I think my heart would love a 1-0 to nick a 1-0 win and then maybe do a little bit of a Charlton.
Can't mention that.
Sorry, yeah. But in all seriousness, though, I think we take a little bit of confidence from the fact that you guys are human. In the end, you are beatable.
Oh, yeah.
And appreciate it wasn't the best performance from you. It wasn't all about Charlton. It always takes two to tango. But the results, you notice them, don't you? And I think it gives the rest of the league a little bit of confidence. Not that we can beat you, and not that you're going to be part of the pack. Because as much as you guys keep saying, I think everyone else in League One sees it's Birmingham and everyone else in terms of stature, in terms of finances, and in terms of ultimately quality on the pitch, which is where it counts. And over a season, I think that absolutely is going to be the case personally. However, on Saturday, I think our strengths probably match up with they're not weaknesses for you, but they're the least strong part of your team, which is the 18-yard box, as it seems at the moment. So, yeah, I'm going to go with a 0-0, to be honest with you, but hopefully a relatively entertaining 0-0.
And I think, I go back to the fact of the Charlton game, and the one thing I can say is Chris Davis is not going to want them to be the same as what he was. He's not going to want to see that same sort of game. And then we'll look to move it forwards overall. I think I'll take a 1-0. I think that's the way we might see it, and it might pan out that particular way. But again, I kind of agree with yourself. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a 0-0.
Would you be satisfied with a 0-0? Probably not, I'm guessing.
I wouldn't be, but I'm saying that as a fan though, because again, it comes down to the fact that I do know that this league is far from a walk in the park, and I don't expect it to be that particular way. It's going to be very tough. We may actually start seeing, we've got to see a bit of a bounce back from our players, but then also that's going to put them on a bit of tender hooks because of what happened, because we don't want to be in that position again. The one thing we have found it hard to do is keep a clean sheet. So it's not many that we've had this season. So again, we know we're there and we could leak a goal, but hopefully that won't occur. So yeah, but my heart says I want to walk away with oh God, I could turn around and say it. I'd love to go and win 4-5-6-0, but it's never going to happen. So I think I'll take a hard 4-1-0. And but we could equally come away with that 0-0, like you say. So it's gonna be good.
I think if anyone was going to be a betting man or woman to pick both teams to score, no, would probably be a smart move on this one.
You're not wrong. So I mean, firstly, thank you very much again for joining. It's always great to hear about the away fans. And this podcast goes down well because it gives an insight to everybody of what we can expect, but also it's a fan's opinion of their team. It's different when you start hearing, your own managerial side of things. My main question, and probably the most important question for the weekend: where should Birmingham fans drink?
The fan zone at the ground is brilliant. So at the stadium itself, we behind the South Park stand. I forget what it's called. It changes every season, the name of that stand. But it's the opposite end of the stadium to the away end. But away fans are very, very welcome. There's a really good bar called the Tipsy Imp that do some really high quality beers. There are some other beers inside the club's bar itself. There's always a little bit of music on. There's always like the teams that are read out. There's always an ex-player that comes and speaks briefly before the game, plus some other kind of food vendors as well. It's a real good vibe, to be honest. So yeah, away fans are always really, really welcome. It's quite a welcoming family club. So I'd absolutely recommend make the most of the fan zone actually at the ground itself. If you're more of a pub person, then there are a few in town. To be honest, we have a Stack, which is quite good, kind of a big place to drink in. And there's a few kind of pubs nearby, a few little micro pubs, plus some bigger ones as well. But I would highly recommend the Tipsy Imp at the actual fan zone itself at the ground.
It's interesting you mentioned the fan zones, because that seems to be the height of what most clubs are doing now, because Birmingham launched theirs this season. So
Okay.
and it has gone down so well, and very similar structure to what you're describing. DJ, street food vendors, bars. It's absolutely wicked. And I say that, but when it rains, no, then you want to avoid. But,
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. If it's raining, go inside or go somewhere else. But outdoors, it's good.
No, brilliant. Well, thank you very much indeed. As always, when it comes to the weekend, I want you to have your worst game of the season, or second worst, because actually I prefer the worst one to be at St Andrews and see a better result. But in all seriousness, I hope the season continues to go well for yourselves, and that we can equally share success as the year ends. And thank you very much again for joining us on the away end. And keep right on.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, I'm gonna same sentiments to you. I hope you have a terrible day, but I hope you have a good season.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.